so. It's no wins in 4 for Manchester United. It's not the result Jose Mourinho would have wanted, but was it the performance he would have been looking for? Gordon?
I thought we were going to start with United.
Fun enough, they've been in the spotlight a fair bit.
Yeah, why not? The biggest club in the world, probably. Biggest wages, so that's why they're in the spotlight all the time. One of the best managers ever, that's why we speak about them. You know, people sometimes think it's unfair speaking about them, but everybody wants to hear about them. At the game tonight, me and you sat and watched the first 20 minutes, we thought, that's all right, that's good. I seen tackles getting won, I seen closing down. But after a wee while, it went back to that kind of lethargic, and we'll just move about here. And then it became a problem, because they played against a Valencia side that had all the traits of a Spanish side by not panicking, good in the ball, but not brilliant when they got in the last third. You know, a real top Spanish side are brilliant in the last third. So they got a draw against an ordinary Valencia side, but I thought the players had a real good go at it. They've got to after the weekend performance, isn't it? But it never really materialised that he had opportunities you think were fantastic. And that, Lukaku seems to be playing with his back to goal all the times. We'll probably come into that later on, how he's doing that. But it just seemed a mundane performance, especially after the first half.
Bear in mind, Liam, all the noise around Manchester United right now. Could you even say that it was a step in the right direction?
I think it was an attempt. I think in a team selection that Jose picked, he picked 2 wide players in Sanchez and Rashford, played Lukaku through the middle. The problem that he has, and the problem Manchester United have at the moment, from a tactical point of view, when Valencia have the ball, because Jose thinks defensively first, both wingers go very, very deep. And when you have a midfield 3 of Matic, Pogba and Fellaini, they're not dynamic players in transition. So when they win the ball back, Lukaku becomes very isolated up front. And that's something where, if you see Liverpool's front 3, they stay very high up the pitch, or Manchester City's front 3 stay high up the pitch. It's almost like, in this game, Jose's trying to say, I'm going to be an attacking coach, but still the fundamental way that he thinks is still defensive. And the players, you just see a lack of dynamism, a lack of tempo. And Old Trafford, for years and years and years, has been built on high-tempo, high-energy football. And it looks like they're attempting to do it, but they don't have the personnel to carry it through.
I mean, there's certainly, I think you would both agree, there wasn't thrills and spills in the game, was there?
No.
And possibly more interesting than the game itself were Jose Mourinho's programme notes from before the game, where I think he spelt out fairly clearly his message. And if you just pick out the highlights from there, he says the team must never, ever lose its dignity, must fight, work, compete, win duels, be humble. Then at the end of the game, every player must be exhausted because of the hard work they've given for the club, the fans, and for each other. That's strong stuff. He then went on even further. This is his programme notes for tonight. Leads to another pair of golden rules which must be followed. The team is always more important than the individual. The crest on the chest is more important than the name on the back of the shirt. I mean, those are very, very pointed comments, aren't they?
They are pointed comments, especially in the light of the performance at West Ham, and it's almost like he's absolving responsibility himself and pointing fingers at the players, and that's what it looks like. It looks like a fractious dressing room at the moment, and that's why you're seeing performances on the field of play that don't have that spirit or that energy, because there's no spirit or energy within the club, within the squad, and I think everyone has to take the blame at the moment, not just Jose, not just the players. I think Ed Woodward, in terms of his recruitment of players, is a really scattergun approach. Jose showed his frustrations in the summer transfer window. And I think it's a culmination of so many different things that have ended up at this point now with a split camp and a split club, and they need to get back together and get back to the basics of playing football and doing things right, rather than worrying about, can we sign these type of players who are great in marketing, great on social media. That's not what Manchester United was built on. Those aren't the trademarks that a Manchester United Football Club is all about.
But those are very deliberate.
I'll go back to that's to patronise all the fans in the stadium, that programme notes. They get on everybody's side. I disagree with the dignity everywhere that he's had. If you ask people about the Porto team that played against Celtic, they would disagree with you immensely. He's been used to the dark arts to win things, and beautiful football at times. So,
do you think that's a bit rich?
But I think that it's a bit rich, to be fair. The dark arts have been, if you talk about when he went to Barcelona and blamed Rijkaard, forgot to see the referee, it wasn't there, poking somebody in the eye, went behind their back. So there's not always been that dignity round about. There's been a winning mentality, which is fine, because we can all go to the dark arts as footballers and managers. So the dignity bit, it's a bit different. The crest, I agree with the crest. Man United's bigger than any player that's been there. But there's players that have been there and dealt with the crest and handled the crest and dealt with the pressure that goes on there. Some players at this moment can't deal with Man United. It's been too big for them. But going back to tactics, I think when you watch Man United just now, if after 20 minutes we shut our eyes and opened them again, another 20 minutes, you'd find that the players are in the exact same positions that they were 20 minutes ago. If you watch Chelsea, Liverpool, Manchester City, the players are all over the place. They're rotating, they're going, they're running without the ball, they're beating people with it. And I think that's a problem for Jose, which we all know is at the top, one of the greatest managers of all time. I think about a year ago he decided that I'm going to be at the biggest team possible and bully my way to winning this league. And I'll make it difficult, because with no set plays that. But what didn't realise it was going to be the genius of Man City, Guardiola players, that's made it different. Now, the problem now is, because if you watch Liverpool playing, it's high energy, it's bursting from midfield, and people talk about, they've got fast players up front. That maybe is not as important as having the quicker players in the middle of the park where you can counter-attack and run without the ball and with it.
Yeah.
I think if Man United won it back with the three they've got just now, it takes a wee while to get up the park. And that's why Lukaku has always got his back to goals when he's playing, because it takes a while, the build-up, and invariably his back to goal. When you watch Man City or Chelsea or Liverpool, when they break, their main strikers are having a look at the pass and the goal at the same time, because they've got that energy to break from midfield.
Yeah, they've also got a Silva or De Bruyne to find
who can eliminate people in midfield and beat you. So that there's a different type. If you look at the midfield, Conte, Jorginho, Kovacic, that wonderful game at the weekend.
Yeah,
terrific game.
player.
Another Milner, Henderson, Wijnaldum and Keita comes on. You know, they've got that energy that bursts from midfield, which opens everything up. They can run with and without the ball. I don't think the United team have got it. And the problem with, but the problem with Jose just now, if I was him, I would think, right, he's been so successful, so brilliant, and we've got this stubbornness about us managers, and you did it. 90% of the time, it'll work for you, 10% of the time, it won't. Like Arsene Wenger kept persevering, trying to make Barcelona. Can't do it without Messi and the top players. So his problem is now, do I change? And then people say, oh, you've changed, but you went like Guardiola and you went like Klopp, which I don't think that would unsettle him. Or do you stick to it? Or you stick to what you're doing?
I've got two questions to pose on it. First of all, can he change with the players he currently has at Manchester United? Are they capable of playing in that way?
They signed Fred for what, £60 million? And I saw him play before he was signed by Manchester United. He excited me because he was someone who can play between lines, who can carry the ball, who can make defence-splitting passes. And with so many players, it's like they have one bad game or two bad games, someone else comes in, they go out the team. You look at the front players today, Sanchez comes in, how long has he been out for? You can't expect players who haven't had a run of games to be on top form. The same with Rashford, in and out of the side. Martial comes on, in and out of the team. And that's a huge problem for Manchester United at the moment, is you could name Man City's team from 1 to 11, you could name Liverpool's team from 1 to 11, Chelsea the same. You see their performance against West Ham, how much of it was to do with the fact they're playing a young lad who's predominantly a central midfield player as a centre-half.
What endears Sanchez to the Arsenal fans, and what endeared us to most is when it wasn't so much his dribbling at times, it was the fact, have a look at him when he lost the ball.
Yeah.
Energy.
His energy. Yeah.
That seems to have gone. Where has that gone?
But what Jose asks his wide players to do is go back and mark the fullbacks. If you watch Manchester United play, when they play 4-3-3, the two wide players are back and they make a back six. And when you win the ball back in transition, they've got to cover 70 yards of the pitch to get up and support Lukaku.
What you're saying is if they go that far back, the people who in transition in the midfield three...
And then they have no pace with Fellaini, Pogba and Matic, Matic is a defensive midfield player. Pogba does it on the ball, but he doesn't make dynamic bursting runs without the ball. I don't see Paul Pogba, for Manchester United, by the way, I see him do it for France, defensively and offensively, but for Manchester United, he doesn't do it. And Fellaini, for me, isn't a technical midfield player who's going to run the game like your Scholes of the past, even Roy Keane. People spoke about Roy Keane without the ball. With the ball, he was a fantastic footballer who could play at tempo. There's no tempo about that team at the moment, and in comparison to those three other clubs we've spoken about, they're so far behind.
But that's what they've got, and I don't think it's being overly melodramatic. Right now, Manchester United is a soap opera on a daily basis. Those comments that Jose clearly premeditated, They've been printed, they've put in tonight's programme. They are very, very deliberate. Is that going to help the situation?
I don't think it's making a difference to the players. If it was going to make a difference, it'd make a difference by now. We're saying, but as I said, they've got a style, and that's the thing about them. They've got a style that they stick to. You know, as a style, you watched it tonight, and even later in the game, it got to the stage. Well, they never come. The last 15 minutes, it was like, okay, they've got the ball, we'll go back in there. Now, whether they totally go back in there, or the fact is that some players, because they don't think they can go engage people, but go back towards their back four to feel comfortable in there.
But when you're deep like that, you can't attack. You can't attack in the way that Manchester United fans would expect and want a Manchester United team to play. But then, not just on the pitch, off the pitch. For me, there's no in terms of recruitment. There's no philosophy in terms. You've got Marcus Rashford, 19, 20 years old, predominantly left winger. Will go and sign Alexis Sanchez, who's coming up to 30, to play in the same position and lose his development and his ability.
I like Sanchez, and I thought he'd be great at Man United.
I think he's a wonderful player. But what I'm saying is, if you're trying to build a team, you've got to have a complete understanding of the way that you want to play. And
Liam, we've just had a tweet in, which is exactly what you're talking about, from Sam Anderson. It says, is Manchester United too big of a job for Mourinho, or is his philosophy on football outdated?
It's a good question. It's a good question. It's a question that's not being answered at the moment for me. I don't think the job's too big for him. I think the structure of the club is all wrong. I think if you look underneath, if you look at Manchester United's academy teams at the moment, they're not performing how Manchester United academy teams should. Their under-23s got relegated last year. A lot of people underneath have lost their jobs who were part of that club for a long, long time, like Sir Paul McGuinness, people like that who were a staple of the football club. And it seems like the club has completely lost this identity and culture that Sir Alex Ferguson built for so long.
You're in the under-23. With so many signings coming in, do you think it affects the morale behind the scenes with the academy and players and coaching staff more at the point?
Yeah.
You know, the whole thing behind the scenes, does that affect them?
But that's my point. With someone like Marcus Rashford, under Sir Alex Ferguson, he would have been given a licence, he would have been given time to play, time to show his ability within a team of very, very good players. But now it's the culture of Manchester United. We're going to go and sign a Pogba because he's great on social media and he's a big star off the pitch.
Is he good on social media? I've never watched that. Is he good, is he?
Yeah, he's fantastic on it. But he's not doing it on the pitch at the moment. But that's my point. They've gone away from what's the most important thing about a football club? On the pitch, the culture of a football club. They've completely gone away from that. And that's not just Jose Mourinho's fault, by the way. That's happened the last few years under Van Gaal and under David Moyes before him.
Another factor, Gordon, possibly, and you have a good view on this as a former manager yourself, he's lost his long-time assistant, Rui Ferreira, and they've been together ever since, before Porto, a really tight-knit team, and you can see the percentage wins with Rui and without. There is a difference there. How much difference would that make?
Well, it did to me. I was lucky at Gary Pendry, who at one time he was like the Yoda of football to me. You know, he sat there and was very quiet. Never done an interview in his life, you know, not one. But always there for me, always defended me, always there when it turned around. It was there, ready to help me. When that man goes missing, you feel alone. I know he's got Carrick there. It will be a great coach.
But that's not the same, is it?
It's not the same as having that guy who can tell you things and say, tell you straight, maybe over a meal somewhere and something like that, or go in the car, going back and say, listen, thought you were wrong with that guy. You need to watch what you're doing there. He had that quiet word all the time, just to make sure that he knew there'd be one or two players that would get under my skin at training. He'd just walk up and go, calm down, and walk away.
Do you think even somebody with, understandably, Jose's confidence and belief because of what he's achieved, would it knock his confidence that he doesn't
Listen, we'll have the darker moments. I don't care who you are, where you've been, what manager. There's times when you feel alone, on your own, and thinking, how am I going to get a win? How am I going to change this? You know, no matter the family and all that, try and help, but you're on your own at times. I don't believe there's any manager, and I know Sir Alex, I've known him for whatever years, and he's had his darker moments as well. Don't worry about that.
Where does this go next? And we seem to have been saying that for
We've been saying it for
weeks,
months
if
now.
not months.
But I think my point is that I don't think you can pin all the blame on the players. I don't think you can pin all the blame on Jose Mourinho. It's a collective thing, and I think it goes above Jose Mourinho massively. I think the board need to be looked at in terms of their decision making, because I've seen the club in decline from the moment that Sir Alex Ferguson left as manager of the football club. Now they need to. I don't see Manchester. I've been to the stadium since Sir Alex Ferguson left. That aura's gone. As you see the game tonight, the Champions League game, the place should be rocking. It's almost like the testimonial atmosphere with no real atmosphere that a European night at Old Trafford should have. The atmosphere around the club is like a dark cloud is hanging over it, and it needs to change sooner rather than later.
But who is going to make that change? Ed Woodward is the Glazers' man, and he is being criticised for not having an understanding or enough of an understanding of football. But for the financial model for the Glazers, he's golden boy.
But for
so
me,
they're not going to change that, are they?
For me, say Jose Mourinho leaves tomorrow and they bring Zinedine Zidane in. Well, I don't see any change. I don't see any change in what can Zidane affect, because in terms of recruitment, you see Jose Mourinho's frustrations in the transfer market. He wants a centre-half. In years gone by, if Man United want a player, they go and get the very best. That's not happening anymore. So I don't think it's just in terms of the manager's problem. I think the club need to look at everything. Have they got a philosophy? Have they got an identity that they used to have and that used to make them number one? They don't have that anymore, and they need to find a way of getting that back.
Just before we leave this, Gord, you must have experienced it again as a manager. What is it like for a manager when you fall out with a player, and how difficult is it when there's friction between you and a player to either heal that or not have it disturb the rest of your squad?
Speak to Liam earlier about this. Over the period of times I've coached, there's probably 4, maybe 5. That if you said to me, you're going to spend a night with him, I go, no thanks. And I've argued about hundreds. But unfortunately, the good thing about when I didn't have social media. I didn't have cameras on top of me all the time. Everybody's speaking about it. I didn't have to deal with it. Even Sir Alex, I mean, dear, every Monday morning at Aberdeen, 6 of us wanted to kill him. I mean, literally kill him. He wouldn't speak to us, we wouldn't speak to him. Time the game got around again on Wednesday, we're all bestie mates again. And I'm afraid that's what happens. But even that thing we see on TV, it was just Mourinho walking up to him and he's gone. And that was blown up into all proportions. But we've seen some crazy things with managers and players. I think if you've still got the respect and honest with each other, and even sometimes if it's simmering, just have a go at it. Me and you'll get in here and have a talk about this, and get over and done with, and then show that united
but once
front.
that element breaks down, that when you've got real problems, you have to like each other, but you have to respect each other.
The choice is with the people at the top. If that's simmering and going through the whole club, the people at the top have got to say, who are we backing here? Who do we think is going to give success? Is it the manager or is it the 2 or 3 players? And that's what they've got to decide.